I think psychologically for a fighter, it's hard to come back from a knockout. But it's probably harder to come back from a fight where you've been dominated and broken for 5 rounds, like where you clearly know that you did not belong there with the,
right.
You know, like
right.
for example, like Khabib's, that's his style. That's why I'm saying he's the scariest guy.
I mean, can you imagine? You're from a place that many parts of the world have never heard of. I don't know how much I thought about Dagestan before Khabib came around. And then now they have not just a world champion, but a guy who smashed the most famous fighter on the planet.
The fighting legacies of giant nations such as the US, Mexico, and Brazil have been set in stone for decades. But the 2010s saw the emergence of a new superpower. Dagestan might be a small region with only 3 million or so people, but its impact on combat sports cannot be understated, boasting a selection of the most powerful wrestlers, dynamic kickboxers, and mentally strong fighters to ever lace up gloves. Let's take a deep dive into the Dagestani wave, the defining fighting movement of the last 10 years.
I come from mountain, Dagestan.
Looks like he's down. Umar Nurmagomedov! And still undefeated.
I train all my life. My father teach us wrestling, combat sambo.
Today, I want to say it was my last fight. And no way I'm gonna come here without my father.
Let me tell you what, you want to talk about one of the greatest coaches in the history of the sport, Khabib Nurmagomedov's dad.
And if I give my word, I have to follow this.
Khabib's father all the time told me, hey, when Khabib retired, you have to take this belt.
The dad had a vision that Khabib would be the champion.
And then when Khabib retired, Islam would fill his shoes and become champion.
That's why I have to be here. That's why I have to finish what my father began.
And where better to begin than with the eagle himself, Khabib Nurmagomedov. Trained in wrestling, sambo, judo, and eventually in mixed martial arts.
Russia presenting the reigning, defending, undisputed UFC lightweight champion of the world, Khabib the Eagle!
Khabib's tutelage under his legendary father Abdul Manap would lay the pathway for all those who followed. From his earliest days, Khabib was a natural, and by the time he turned pro, his ability to inflict an insanely high pace on his opponents was unmatched. Persistent takedowns were the name of the game for Nurmagomedov, and by the time he reached title contention, his fellow lightweights didn't stand a chance.
At the Olympic Games, and he beat all of us though. He beat me, he beat Kel Sanderson, he beat Kyle Snyder, he beat all the best Americans for a long time. He wrestled from my Olympic cycle all the way to Kyle Snyder, who won the 2020 Olympic Games. That guy beat him.
His UFC 223 battle with Ali Aquinta to win the belt was a mere formality. But that event's infamous Media Day conflict with Conor McGregor set off a chain of events that would lead Khabib to superstardom.
The reason this fight is so big is because it's two of the absolute best fighters in the world fighting in their prime when they should be fighting.
A man who conquered a bear at childhood will be wrestling Conor McGregor on Saturday night, UFC 229.
I want to take him down, speak with him, slap him. This is what I want to do. And finish is high.
He beat the brakes off McGregor later that year and put his status as the undisputed king of the 155-pounders, stealing the show in the Octagon and the headlines with his wild post-fight attack on Conor's team. Defenses against Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje brought Khabib's record all the way up to a perfect 29-0.
I just love the fact that a guy escaped with 29-0.
Yeah.
It's a pretty impressive record, and fought everybody. Mauled everybody, got to the top, fought the best guys, fought you, fought Justin, silenced Conor, just did the thing, got out.
But once his father Abdul Manap passed away,
A vow to his mother brought the Eagles fighting career to an end at the peak of his powers. But for as much as we remember the performances, the true impact of Khabib's legacy came in the way he changed the game, and the successors that stepped up and carried on in his absence. Islam Makhachev was the perfect heir to Nurmagomedov's lightweight throne, the ideal fighter to improve on Khabib's fighting system. Sure, his rise to the top of the lightweight ranks was slower than expected, but as Khabib stepped aside, Islam really started to improve before our eyes, showcasing a level of well-roundedness that far eclipsed his childhood friends.
I think what's going to be interesting to see who has the advantage. Oh, big left hand. I'm saying, wow! Islam Makhachev sets it up with the probing right hand and lands that left hand on the button.
Islam Makhachev.
Give me please top 15 guys. I know. Lara Bam have top 15. Give me somebody.
His fellow lightweights feared him so much that they wouldn't sign to fight him, and as a result, Islam needed 8 straight wins before getting a big-name opponent in Dan Hooker. An opponent he ran through like he wasn't even there.
Right into the double leg. He got to this Kimura. The moment he steps over the head, Paul, it's over. Dan has got his hands locked, but the moment that left leg comes over the top, now you're done. And look at the torque he's got on that arm.
Islam Makhachev!
If one thing was clear, it was that Islam was ready for gold, and his follow-up destruction of Bobby Green only proved it.
Perhaps more confident in his own ability to get a UFC belt than anybody else.
He is relentless.
Locked, hands are locked. Yeah.
Look at that. Referee's going to step in.
That's going to do it. Wow. Islam Makhachev.
Islam Makhachev.
Makhachev was turning into a far more destructive force as the years went on, racking up finish after finish, before then getting the stoppage over the great Charles Oliveira, dropping the fan favorite before quickly securing the choke.
Red. If you want to touch gloves, come out now. Ready to fight.
And against the credentialed Charles Dubronx Oliveira.
Whoa!
Oh, that's how you time a takedown.
Khabib's successor had officially found his way to the top of the pile, and his duo of victories over the great featherweight champion Alexander Volkanovski proved that he was far more than a one-trick pony. Not only did Islam have the wrestling and grappling chops that made Khabib so special, but he also paired it with a surprisingly in-depth knowledge of striking, bringing an incredibly dynamic game to the table. And he would need every tool in his arsenal in order to extend his run of title defenses with a win over Dustin Poirier. But during his same time as his own rise at lightweight, something similar was happening down at featherweight.
There's this guy that fought on the undercard, Zabit Magomedsharipov. Holy is this guy. He's phenomenal.
An animal?
He's one of Mark Henry's guys down in New Jersey.
Okay, that's good.
And,
I like Mark Henry.
From Dagestan.
The 145-pound division was playing host to an electric talent that looked destined to rule the division for years to come. However, the story of Zabit Magomedsharipov is not the type of tale that ends with the undisputed glory and the legendary achievement, but that doesn't mean that it's not an absolute thrill ride.
Yeah. Zabit Magomedsharipov. That was a guy that fuck, man. I was really bummed out when he stepped out.
Really?
I think so. Find out what he's doing. Zabit Magomedsharipov. That guy was fucking good.
He did some cool shit.
Ooh, he did some wild shit.
Magomedsharipov simply didn't fight like anyone else in the sport at the time. The word artist gets thrown around a lot in this sport, but Zabit was exactly that, a truly creative fighter. Most fans thought of Dagestan and immediately thought of Khabib, and the overwhelming wrestling that he and his team had perfected up in those mountains.
All right, look, speaking about Zabit, I'm not going to say some generic stuff like he was a good and excellent guy, you know? I'll put it this way, as humble as he was, he is still the same guy, right? Unfortunately. Look, I'm saying unfortunately. Fame didn't change him at all. Why unfortunately? He could be of great benefit to the young kids who do sports, but he is so shy that he doesn't want to promote kids, or like our federation of Wushu Sanda. But he came from Wushu Sanda. It's one of the most beautiful sports there is, because it has everything. Judo throws, boxing technique, kicks from taekwondo, and wrestling. Well, there's a little bit of wrestling in the professional wushu as well.
Zabit would throw spinning kicks, back fists, attempt wild submissions, jump off the side of the cage, and do everything in his power to keep his opponent guessing at all times.
In other words, he was the total opposite to Khabib. With Khabib, you knew what was coming. That didn't make it any easier to stop, but he definitely had a more linear path that would always lead him to victory. But unfortunately, just as Zabit's career looked set to join the truly great featherweight runs of his era, he cut his time short in the sport out of nowhere, opting to retire from MMA in favor of a career as a doctor. He will forever be known as one of the biggest what-ifs in the sport's history. But that doesn't mean that the last truly great Dagestani striker has come and gone. No, we focused on the past and the present, and now we're gonna take a look into the future. And firstly, one of the most exciting middleweights on the roster today, Shara Magomedov, also known as Shara Bullet, entered the UFC with the hallmarks of a superstar. His fighting style is truly dynamic and undeniably dangerous. His look is completely unique, and the fact that he only has one eye adds to his aura. His nickname ties the whole thing together perfectly.
That dude is nasty.
Isn't it crazy how good he can fight with one eye?
He gotta have two eyes, Joe.
He's got one eye.
Come on.
He's blind.
He's blind?
That's why he's fighting overseas. He's blind in his right eye.
He fought in Abu Dhabi. You're right. No commission.
He's blind in his right eye.
Shara Magomedov entered the UFC with the hallmarks of a superstar. His fighting style is truly dynamic and undeniably dangerous. His look is completely unique, and the fact that he only has one eye only adds to his aura. He even has a truly badass nickname, Shara Bullet, which ties the whole thing together perfectly.
I just love to hurt people and make sure that I hurt him as much as I can in the fight, so I didn't want to let him survive this, but somehow he survived and went through it.
Kicks are the name of the game when it comes to Shara Bullet, and the sheer amount of weapons he has in his lower limbs makes him a uniquely deadly threat within the middleweight division. But the power he has in his hands cannot be understated either. And his frankly ridiculous double-spinning backfist knockout at UFC 308 proved that beyond any doubt. The true extent of Shara Bullet's potential is not exactly clear just yet, but he is very obviously a fun addition to the UFC's 185-pound roster. However, the final fighter we're going to feature here has already showcased his elite status, and there is every chance that he rules one of the sport's premier divisions for quite some time, while others had already reached the peak of their development.
Nurmagomedov, he steps down, but then you have Umar.
He looks great.
Phenomenal. Completely different style.
Yep.
His so dynamic. His kicking is so dynamic. It's so dangerous and quick. Dude, he's good. He's real good. His striking was on point. Like, everything was on point. And he's more threatening wrestling.
Umar Nurmagomedov was quietly making his rise through the deepest division in the UFC today. Umar brings an even more dynamic and effective kicking game to the table than Shara Bullet, utilizing it as his primary form of offense against some of the best bantamweights available to him at the time. Sure, he skipped a few spots in the queue when he jumped up from barely even ranked to take on the former title challenger in Corey Sandhagen. But Umar proved that he was clearly elite with this performance.
But the thing about Umar is he actually does pretty well in the stand-up. You know, he's got really good kicks, teep kicks. He's got a good question mark kick. But at the end of the fight, man, my hand will be raised. I get paid the same, so 4 minutes in sounds just as good as 15 minutes in. So, yeah, definitely going to put him out.
And just because he possesses such a wide array of impressive kicks, don't be fooled into thinking that his grappling and wrestling aren't also incredibly impressive. In 18 career wins during this run, he finished 7 fights by way of submission, favoring a rear naked choke that has gotten him to tap in 6 of those bouts.
People are going to see that, you know, there's going to be a new bantamweight champion, and it's going to be, you know, a Nurmagomedov, little Umar, little ego, young ego. Little Umar's he's gonna do it. I feel really comfortable with that, you know, and he's got a really super tough champion in front of him, and it's not gonna be easy by any means, but I believe we're gonna do it.
Umar's coaches seem to think that he's even better than his predecessors, but only time will tell just how far the latest Dagestan export can go. But what about you guys? Who's your favorite Dagestan fighter of all time? And do you see other rising prospects from the region that look set to take over the fight game? Let us know your opinions in the comments below.